Hello chums. Tonight we're going to read an excerpt from the book Supertraining by Mel C, Siff and Yuri Verkhoshansky on the concept of rate of force development, which will teach us why it's not always the fastest or strongest athlete that wins. To better understand the role of strength in sport, it is relevant to commence with an analysis of a typical force-time curve in lifting a free weight from a given position and returning it to that position. Starting strength refers to the ability to build up a working force as rapidly as possible once muscle contraction has begun, and it is always produced under conditions of isometric muscle action. This fact alone has important consequences for strength training, because it dispels the opinion that the once popular method of isometric training should be completely abandoned in modern training. On the contrary, the ability to generate starting strength rapidly can exert a profound effect on the dynamics of an entire movement, not only in terms of the magnitude of the impulse, but also regarding the psychological sensation of lightness that it creates during the initial, crucial stage of a highly resisted movement. If the load is near maximal, then the initial slope of the force-time curve is small, and the time taken to produce movement is prolonged. This requires the exhibition of the motor quality of static strength endurance, as opposed to dynamic strength endurance, which refers to the muscle endurance required to maintain movement over a given interval. This quality may be involved in carrying out a set of repetitions with a load, or by maintaining cyclic work of various intensities. One may also identify a property known as explosive strength endurance, which involves the repetitive execution of explosive effort. Acceleration strength describes the ability of the muscle to build up force as rapidly as possible under dynamic conditions once the contraction has already begun. Finally, explosive strength is the ability to produce maximal force in minimal time. It's most commonly displayed in athletic movements, when the contraction of the working muscles in the fundamental phases of the exercise is preceded by mechanical stretching. In this instance, the switch from stretching to active contraction uses the elastic energy of the stretch to increase the power of the subsequent contraction, a process that is central to the so-called stretch shortening cycle and plyometric or rapid rebound action. This specific quality of muscle is called its reactive ability. Suppose that we now wish to use the information from figure 2.14 to compare the performances of two different athletes in executing the same exercise. They have both been instructed to perform a single maximal repetition of this exercise as rapidly as possible and to hold the load for as long as possible until fatigue forces them to stop. Their resulting force time curves show that athlete B exerts a greater maximal force and continues to produce force far longer than athlete A. However, at any point between time 1 and time 2, athlete A is able to exert a greater force than athlete B. If the sport concerned requires rapid rate of force development, then athlete A will have the advantage. This quality is essential in any sports which involve jumping, striking, or throwing, such as basketball, martial arts, and track and field. In any case, any training aimed at increasing athlete B's maximal strength or bulk will be misdirected because he needs to concentrate on explosive rate of force development training. If the sport requires high maximal force or a large amount of momentum to be exerted irrespective of time, then athlete B will prove to be superior. Athlete A will not improve unless he trains to increase maximal strength in that instance. The area under the curve, i.e. momentum, which describe athlete B's performance, is greater than the corresponding area for athlete A, just like the total duration of the curve, i.e. reflecting muscle endurance, is greater for B also. So B has a distinct advantage in any activity that requires great momentum or muscle endurance during a single heavy effort. This situation can occur in events like wrestling, powerlifting, rugby, or judo. This type of analysis also reveals the limitations of using isometric or isokinetic dynamometers to assess muscular strength and performance. These devices are unable to measure functional maximal strength, rate of force development, or explosive strength, so it is futile to use them in an attempt to identify functional characteristics or deficiencies in such a way as to have any accurate bearing on analysing sporting preparedness or progress. With that, you're able to understand that it's not always the strongest athlete who wins, nor is it the fastest athlete who wins. It's the athlete who is able to develop the correct amount of force to overcome the level of resistance for the task in the shortest amount of time. A strong athlete may not be able to produce enough force to overcome it quickly, and a fast athlete may not be able to produce enough force to overcome it at all. It is the athlete that is perfectly developed to create the right amount of force at the right speed who will succeed in a task where that is the most important factor.